China was the top direct purchasing choice for South Korean online shoppers in the first quarter this year, accounting for 57% of all overseas direct purchasing transactions, followed by the US and EU. Quite a mouthful there.
Yes. 우리나라 올해 1분기 온라인 해외 직접 구매처 중 중국이 전체 구매의 57%를 기록해 가장 큰 비중을 차지했고 미국과 유럽이 그 뒤를 이은 것으로 나타났습니다. 보통 이제 직구라고 하잖아요. In Korea, conventionally we would go through other shopping sites to buy things from overseas, but now you can buy it directly, and a lot of people prefer to do this.
Yeah, cut out the middleman, maybe save a little bit of money.
Yeah, exactly. And it looks like China is the most popular place to buy things directly from.
Yes, and quite an increase too compared to the first quarter of last year, an increase of 9.4%, and it's quite a lot of money we're talking about here too. 1.65 trillion won, which is about 1.2 billion US.
오, 9% 정도 이제 오른 수치라고 합니다. 이제 중국 직구에 대한 퍼센티지가 it's in the first quarter this year.
And that's the largest figure for any first quarter ever as well.
그렇군요. 1사분기, 1분기 기록 중 가장 높은 그런 수치를 기록하고 있는데요. 작년 대비 9% 정도 오른 그런 모습이고요. So,
and as
altogether, more than 57%?
Right, right. And that's
Yeah.
quite significant as well, because that is the largest proportion ever. If we're breaking it down by country, 57% is massive.
Yeah, yeah.
And in the headline even mentions followed by the US and the EU. Followed by just means next. It doesn't really tell you how close they
Right.
are.
So tell us,
57% for China. US was second at only just under 23%.
Oh.
So a massive discrepancy there. The EU, not even 9%, 8.6. So
huge differences.
yeah, we could even use, in that case, I would use a phrase like the lion's share.
Oh, yeah.
The lion's share came from China.
그러네요. 자, 중국 직구가 57%, 그 다음으로 이제 미국인데요. 미국 직구는 23%, 그리고 3위는 유럽입니다. 한 9% 정도. 그러니까 차이가 엄청나게 많이 난다는 걸 알 수 있어서 가장 큰 퍼센티지를 차지하는 중국을 China took up the lion's share라고 할 수 있어요. 사자 비율, 사자 부분 이런 단어가 이제 영어로는 가장 큰 부분이라는 뜻입니다. The lion's share. Yeah. Right. So overseas.
Overseas just refers to a foreign country, but usually ones that are over a sea, so it's
Right.
quite far.
Yeah.
Right, and technically in Korea, anytime you travel outside of Korea, unless unless you took a trip to North Korea, which very few people can do, you're traveling overseas.
그죠. 해외 overseas. You don't say oversea.
No,
when
it's always plural. Yeah, it's just a phrase.
Overseas.
Right, travel
그죠?
overseas.
Travel overseas.
Usually
해외로
people would
여행
move
갔다.
overseas.
Yeah. Are you from overseas? Someone might say.
Sure.
Or have you been overseas?
Yes, that's kind of really common phrase too.
해외 나가봤어요? Have you been overseas? 이렇게 얘기할 수 있습니다.
So if when the first time I ever went to the U.S. And I think every time I've been to the U.S. I've just driven.
Yeah.
So can I say overseas then? Is Canada
a
and
bit
the U.S.
tricky, isn't
overseas?
it?
It's not really, is it?
Right. You went to a different country, but not overseas.
Not overseas, right? You
그러네요.
just crossed an imaginary line.
네. 그 토론토에서 플로리다로 이렇게.
Sorry?
Did you go from Toronto to Florida maybe? Or...
Usually I just went to the northern states to watch sports. So I went to Detroit to watch baseball, hockey, American football, Boston to go to Fenway Park, Cleveland. I've been to those places. Buffalo.
Yeah.
But I've been to South Carolina. That's as far south as I've been, and that was 30 years ago.
Yeah. 캐나다에서 미국으로 갈 땐 분명히 다른 나라이긴 한데 차를 타고 갔기 때문에 레이 선생님이 그래서 이걸 내가 해외라고 말을 할 수 있나 바다를 건너진 않았는데 뭐 이런 딜레마를 지금 설명해 주셨고요. 해외 overseas도 있고 그다음에 이제 두 번째 표현은 followed by
Next. The next thing.
그렇죠. 그래서 1위는 중국 그다음에 followed by 그 다음으로 미국과 EU가 있었다.
So we always do the first two stories, and then that's followed by a song break.
Sure. All right, let me read this headline again. China was the top direct purchasing choice for South Korean online shoppers in the first quarter this year, accounting for 57% of all overseas direct purchasing transactions, followed by the US and the EU. Let's move on to the next headline.